President Trump is now taking the already boiling tension with the Venezuelan president to a new level now, ordering a, quote, total and complete blockade on sanctioned oil tankers in and out of Venezuela. He says that's going to be backed by a, quote unquote, armada of U.S. ships in the region. The specific wording of Trump's announcement may allow for more wiggle room than his blockade threat suggests, but he's definitely trying to escalate things even further. It comes after the U.S. Coast Guard seized this ship. We've been showing you this video since last week off of Venezuela's coast. The new threat is now intended to hit right at the heart of the Venezuelan economy, its massive oil reserves. The president, it appears, is also trying to turn the focus back to the Caribbean and back to his agenda, announcing a primetime speech from the White House tonight. One thing he's likely trying to turn the focus away from, that explosive Vanity Fair interview with his chief of staff, Susie Wiles. People still trying to wrap their heads around what was said on the record in this lengthy series of interviews. One of the more and many eyebrow-raising things about what was said was about those strikes on alleged drug boats off the coast of Venezuela. The Trump administration has maintained that those strikes are aimed at stopping drugs from reaching the United States. But Susie Wiles says on the record now that they're more about the country's leader, saying that Trump, quote, wants to keep on blowing boats up until Maduro cries uncle. CNN's Elena Treen is live at the White House for us this morning. About that blockade, what are you hearing?
Yeah, and what a stunning quote that was from Susie Wiles, particularly as someone who's been covering this Venezuela escalation for weeks now. I mean, to have the White House Chief of Staff say that on the record is pretty remarkable, given it's very different, Kate, from what we have heard from officials maintaining that this is all about trying to stop the flow of drugs into the U.S. But to get back to your initial question, President Trump designated Venezuela a foreign terrorist organization on Tuesday. And as you mentioned, he also formally ordered a blockade of all U.S. sanctioned oil tankers that are servicing Venezuela. Now, this is a major escalation and backed, as the president argues, by a giant U.S. armada. And it puts unprecedented pressure on Nicolas Maduro and his regime. A key question, of course, is what will the real impact of this be? I think there's no question that it will hit their already very struggling economy especially hard and could threaten to actually bankrupt Venezuela. But I want to read for you some of what the president posted overnight. He said, quote, Venezuela is completely surrounded by the largest armada ever assembled in the history of South America. It will only get bigger, and the shock to them will be like nothing they have ever seen before, until such time as they return to the United States of America all of the oil, land, and other assets that they previously stole from us. Now, I should say, Trump incorrectly argued that they have stolen a lot of oil and resources from them. That's not necessarily true. We have reached out to clarify those remarks. Venezuela and the Maduro regime is also hitting back very hard. They're arguing essentially that this is showing the real threat or real trying to goal of the president, which they are arguing is to steal the wealth of the country. So a major escalation here of what we are seeing from the president toward Venezuela.
Joining us now is CNN military analyst and retired Air Force Colonel Cedric Leighton. Appreciate you being with us.
Oh, it's great to be with you, Rosemary.
So, Colonel, on Monday night, the Pentagon struck 3 more alleged drug boats in the Eastern Pacific. And then on Tuesday, an interview with Vanity Fair has President Trump's chief of staff, Susie Wiles, revealing that these strikes were less about drugs and more about regime change, saying that Trump, quote, wants to keep on blowing boats up until President Nicolas Maduro cries uncle. And people way smarter than me on that say that he will, unquote. What's your reaction to this?
Well, I don't think that hitting these alleged drug boats is going to do the trick. If the effort is going to be focused on regime change, what really needs to happen is they need to go after much bigger fish, figuratively speaking, of course. And what I'm talking about there, of course, would be something like the oil tankers. And so there is a distinct possibility that based on the president's Truth Social posting and some reporting, the distinct possibility is that he's going to go after the oil tankers. So basically, like that operation a few days ago that netted the large oil tanker that was flying the Guyanese flag, that is the kind of thing that we can expect to see. And if he's going to really blockade Venezuela, and specifically with the purpose of going after those oil tankers, that would be more likely to create the conditions for regime change. It's definitely not a guarantee that it would happen, but it's certainly much closer to achieving that goal as opposed to going after the small alleged drug vessels.
Right, and what is your view of that strategy, the regime change?
Well, I don't think it is the smartest thing to do at this point in time. I think there are a lot of other things that can be done when it comes to Venezuela, but there is certainly one aspect of it is certainly in Trump's camp, and that is the fact that Maduro lost an election, a popular election, and in that sense he's illegitimately the president of Venezuela right now. So to effectively remove him is not a bad idea, but it should be done by the Venezuelan people. They are the ones that should be taking this into their hands and creating conditions where Maduro leaves.
And Colonel, also on Tuesday, Senate Democrats are angry after attending a classified briefing with Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and Secretary of State Marco Rubio, where they declined to show senators the unedited video of that controversial second strike on an alleged drug boat in the Caribbean on September 2nd that targeted 2 survivors. What's your response to their refusal to release this controversial footage?
I think it's a big mistake. Now, I think what the administration is looking at is the possibility that if they do release the video, it could potentially lead to everybody, or at least many viewers, looking at it and saying there were, in fact, war crimes committed. So the administration is trying to avoid that. And one of the key tells in this particular case is the fact that they changed their policy when it came to survivors, and they had a few of them a few weeks later, and those 2 that we know about at least were repatriated to their countries, in this case Colombia and Ecuador. So it's pretty clear to me that they didn't want to have survivors and really had no contingency plans for survivors, but that was a direct violation not only of the laws of war, but also of maritime laws. So that puts the administration in quite a bind, actually.
And Colonel, what more are you learning about Hegseth's plans for major power shifts within the US military that, if adopted, would aid other efforts by the Trump administration to move resources away from the Middle East and Europe and apparently reduce the number of generals? What's this all likely to accomplish as well?
Yeah, so this is a very interesting development, and of course they'll tell you that it's a pre-decisional phase that they're going through right now, so they haven't made a final decision. But if they actually decide to reduce the number of 4-star slots that are 4-star general slots that are slated to command the unified commands, such as European Command, African Command, Central Command that's responsible for the Middle East, and similar commands, that really creates a problem, because it's really important for us to have a handle on what's going on regionally in each of those areas. And Europe, of course, is critical at this particular point in time, as is the Middle East. And if we withdraw from those areas, as well as Africa, that's going to create a real problem.
All right, we'll see what happens there. Colonel Cedric Leighton, thank you so much for joining us.